Hey guys, welcome to another commentary done by Diggity. Upper left-hand corner, we got NewOcean starting as the green Protoss. Bottom left-hand corner, we have Ratti starting as the blue Protoss. I actually am going to give, just because we're at the start of the game, there's a little bit of space to fill. Game 1, by the way, went to Ratti really the probe micro, and being able to create a lot of disruption early game, sealing the match for him, and then some troublesome follow-up micro by NewOcean potentially. But anyway, Guanglord out in Twitch land chat had the comment, do players ever rebind their extra mouse button to beat control? And if they don't, they should. That's genius. So if you have players out there, maybe think about that, because honestly, you got your thumb right there on that extra mouse button on most mice these days. Might as well make it control. For a minute, you can look up what's called an ergodox, E-R-G-O-D-O-X. I built one of those back when I was thinking like, oh yes, I'm gonna have time to practice StarCraft in the future, and then I had a kid and all of that kind of went in the garbage. Instead, I commentate. They say those who can't teach, those who can't teach commentate. I guess that would be the way to go about it. Anyway, probe making its way towards the upper left-hand corner. Looks we do have a gateway, a 10 gate from NewOcean and Ratti equivalently. We'll see if we see a second gateway from either of these guys. Might be a little bit more precautious, and honestly, I'd be a little bit worried if I was NewOcean, seeing a probe, Ratti's probe in my base again. He is grabbing the assimilator right off the bat, by the way. Opens up the possibility for a 2-gate for Ratti if he is meandering a probe out to go ahead and go for that second gateway. Potentially, yeah, so it's going to be 2-gate here from Ratti. Attacking that pylon, softening it up ahead of time. So now we'll see how NewOcean's 2-gate defenses, how solid they are in comparison. I feel like that's actually kind of the mark of Protoss, good Protoss play in general, is how well you respond doing 1-gate assimilator versus 2-gate versus in scouted positions like this. Anyway, Ratti getting the most out of the probe right this second, creating some disruption. Gonna go ahead and I actually think going for him, is that a mana pylon? I believe that's a mana pylon. It's gotta be a mana pylon in his opponent's base. First zealot, a defensive zealot is being queued up. First 2 zealots, first zealot away, additional 2 zealots not queued up yet for Ratti. Interesting. So he's got enough resources, and he's got resources climbing to honestly grab additional, to field additional zealots. Okay, there he's queued it up. A little bit of a delay there. Maybe in the midst of micro, we'll see. Second gateway drop there from NewOcean, which I think this is a wisdom drop more than anything, recognizing that he's potentially in peril. And moving out a probe scout to confirm whether he's in peril, might not send it the right direction. Second mana pylon, but it blocks that probe in alongside, and he's got to be assuming an assault is coming his direction. Does not see the zealot, so the zealot is going to be able to make its way all the way in. A lot of economic disruption, by the way, from these dual mana pylons. The first Dragoon, 2/3 finished as that zealot making its way across is spotted. NewOcean trying to dash to the north, draw that zealot that direction. Probe's kind of, yeah, a few probes scattering. Dragoon is now out. Now he doesn't know whether, here's the thing though, he doesn't know that it's going to be a 2-gate as of yet. Ratti, between all the mana pylons, has actually dropped a little bit of micro, or a little bit of macro, I should say. A pylon there to blockade in the midst of this. The Dragoon going back to assault here, and now the Dragoon taking a couple free hits that maybe shouldn't have. The Zealot, NewOcean, presuming things were safe and that the coast was clear a little bit too early, and he might lose his Dragoon. As a result, second Dragoon now out, so it's going to be 2 Dragoons. Usually when 2 Dragoons are out against these numbers, it's a large map, honestly, to try to pull this off. It's usually safe. So Ratti investing a lot of Zealots here in the early game, 2 pylons as well, and I don't think he's going to get any probe kills out of it unless this Zealot manages to score some hits. Actually, never mind, just able to get a probe kill. Is he going to get a second one? Oh man, trouble. Yeah, NewOcean falling apart right this second. Second Zealot marching its way, and more Zealots streaming their way across, by the way. It looks like we do have the assimilator up in the cybernetic core. 2 probes are idle in the space of this. The northern Zealot looks like that's going to go after the pylon to try to clear them up, while the Dragoons are just clearing out the Zealots. Another Zealot making its way up sacrificially. Four Dragoons, and unless we had some bad micro with that Dragoon, I think that should be it. Should be it. Yeah, Ratti drawing that Zealot off. But as things end, Ratti is up a good amount of workers here, managed to get a decent amount of damage, had those mana pylons up for a considerable period of time. But he is going to be down a good number of Dragoons. Should be able to hold his ramp just fine, but might get denied natural expansion. I love what Ratti is doing here, pocketing the Zealot to the north. So if NewOcean overreacts here, that Zealot can go ahead and march in. NewOcean being very, very patient here. This is something, actually I want to key in on this. If he draws back, crazy patience. Is checking for that potential proxy Zealot, by the way. Before face checking, trying to get some shots off on that Zealot, at least to discover there's no natural. So this Zealot's going to come around and meet 2 Dragoons on that Zealot in the corner. Very, very patient play from him. Down 2 workers range, going Forge as well, just in case there's DT play, to respect it. Fortunately, one of his damage Dragoon is here, on the low ground. But he does have Dragoon, I was going to say Dragoon superiority for the short term. Pulling away shield battery on the low ground here from Ratti. I'm a little bit surprised by that. Figured this amount of Zealots in the high ground would be sufficient. This Zealot that was pocketed finally making its way north. Does NewOcean spot it? He does spot it, but a bit late, so gonna get the scouting information. Critically, he's gonna see the Forge in the midst of this, and a lack of robotics, so he's gotta presume, and then a cannon getting dropped here in the main. So, and this is without DTs that were coming alongside, so NewOcean respecting potential deep play, but that might swing things back to Ratti's favor. He's gonna go ahead and get his 3rd gateway up. We do have a robotics underneath. NewOcean really is believing that this is DT play, by the way. Is hugging the ramp as though DTs were coming alongside. I think in the midst of this, I'm actually not sure after 2 gate what the timing on DTs are, but I think it's around 7:15, potentially. Somewhere around there. I might be very off on that. A Forge on the opposite side, by the way. I think... I don't think Ratti saw the Forge in the midst of it and was like, oh, hey, that's a good idea, but does have that Forge up. But got all eyes in the base, so knows that he had to... That's crazy, actually. He saw the entirety of the base. Unless there was proxy tech, I guess he's just really respecting NewOcean. Now I'm wondering if this is a broken replay. Probe checking for proxy tech himself on NewOcean's part, by the way. But he dropped the cannon. He saw the entirety of the base, but is dropping a cannon regardless. Just to be absolutely sure. NewOcean supply blocked right this second, by the way. So supply lead to Ratti. Robotics and Observatory are up. Neither player has opted to go for their Nexus. We got 3 gate behind this for Ratti, which is going to explain his supply lead. And after being a down Dragoon early, even with this, with 3 gate, I still expect him to get aggressive and move out. And might have success with this because it looks like 2 additional gates getting dropped from NewOcean. Going +1 weapons in the midst of this, but this is going to be a flood of troops, and if it's a big if the low ground to high ground fire ratio does not work out for him, he could be in trouble. Probe leading from Ratti, sees no natural expansion in the midst of this. He was planning on charging the troops forward regardless. Dragoon's starting to get the shots, and the Observer is going to be able to spot, sees a lot of these Dragoons making their way forward, and a proxy pylon. Interesting. For Ratti as well. Is he going to proxy a Forge? Or sorry, cannons, I should say. Right now, does he have the Dragoon advantage as well? It looks like it's even right this second. Cannons dropped. I think the probe got picked off. Never mind, the probe slotted down. NewOcean has 2 observers, though, to see the troops. And this actually might end up hurting Ratti, because Ratti's thinking, okay, 3 gate, I'm going to be able to push into this. And instead, it's actually 4 gate. And he might end up getting pushed back. He's got another March of Dragoons, proxy or I think this is a denial pylon, also vision pylon, in the midst of this. The one problem for NewOcean is still being able to get down to the low ground. +1 weapons will help. He's going to move on +1 weapons regardless, I think. But then the question is how much does he lose? And there's a shield battery on the front being constructed. Does the Observer see it? The Observer does see it, I believe. Yeah. Will that be enough? Will NewOcean pull the trigger fast enough before that really becomes a factor? And how much loss will there be trying to get through this gap? Because he hasn't opened up either Zergag. So the shield battery's up. Interesting. And Dragoon's taking an odd route the way around. Yeah, NewOcean now open up the eggs. Is that a tell to Ratti? NewOcean actually up a considerable amount of supply, but he's very boxed in. Still no natural expansion. The Observer spots that. Ratty going to go ahead and grab his natural now, feeling like NewOcean is very, very sealed in. And now my question is does NewOcean wait for Citadel? Pretty sizable spread, by the way. Observer sees, yeah, more Dragoons making their way across. What's the raw number here? I believe NewOcean is up. He's up 16 supply overall. If you deduct 3, it's a pretty sizable supply lead. The Zealots being constructed. Yeah, I think he's just going to build Zealots past this. Ooh, some Zealots actually sneaking out to the corner. Now all hell breaking loose. And NewOcean leaving a lot of the Dragoons in the midst of this. Okay, there he's got them attacking out. And unfortunately, the focus fire pretty scattered from NewOcean. So I think Ratty getting some decent exchange, but he still is just behind as far as raw troop count. So and the shield battery not active as of yet, by the way. There he finally utilized it, but didn't last very long. Now all of a sudden, after that exchange, Ratty's lost everything, including the shield battery. You've got... Do we have Zealot leg speed upgraded? No, we do have... and keep in mind, +1 weapons also made a big difference in that fight. Now NewOcean just going to start charging his way across, clearing out... Interesting, clearing out the third. Is he just going to go for 2 quick expansions? He's on 4-gate. Okay, 4-gate dropping his Nexus regardless. Interesting. And 2 cannons getting dropped in the midst of this. I felt like NewOcean actually had an overwhelming attack force. Maybe he was concerned about Reaver tech in the space of this. That we do have a Reaver out, no shuttle as of yet. Observer gets picked off. Second gas, I think, was spotted in the midst of this. But yeah, NewOcean just going to go... Wow. That is the play I did not expect from NewOcean. So instead of... So the Observer, I don't even think that Observer is going to think to check that third. Pretty smart play, though, because with the Reaver threat on the low ground, he has to... And Zealot leg speed, by the way, about to come online. He recognizes that the Reaver could be the difference to hold that fight. Observer picked off across the map. A Probe just checking out for sneak expansions. I don't know that he's going to think to check the 9 o'clock base for a sneak expansion. I think Ratty's as confused as I am, potentially, that he didn't have a bunch of Dragoons attacking his front right this second. But as an interesting turnaround now, Ratty has 2 bases up. NewOcean still up a number of workers here. NewOcean now assaulting as Zealot leg speeds are finished. Sees the Reaver, turns around, and flees. Natural expansion Nexus is up. And the 3rd base Nexus is up, so he is going to have an opportunity to surge ahead as far as raw macro. He's still, as far as robotics tech, way behind. Does need to get a Templar Archives down sooner rather than later to potentially negate that advantage, and it looks like he did have a rally point towards the front. Bunch of speed zealots along that corner. I'm also curious if Ratty is going to think about sneaking a base himself to the top right. Never mind, just dropping a pylon out to that location. And is he, the next question, does NewOcean grab the 3rd gas? Will be my other query. This is a very vulnerable base, by the way, with the shuttle and Reaver potentially in the midst of this. But right now, NewOcean with the macro lead, with the raw supply lead, with the upgrade lead, but the one difference here is does not have the tech lead. And he is going to grab that 3rd gas and drop a cannon as well. Probe meandering out. Is the Probe going to get caught before... Okay, I want to switch vision here. Sees the army there, but does not see the Nexus. And is now bearing forward with a large attack force. Actually larger than NewOcean's right this second. NewOcean has another army pocketed here to the northern corner. So I think he recognized that it was there. The Reaver's going to get the better shot of this exchange. I think NewOcean might end up losing this base based on this exchange. Yeah, evacuating probes. Did manage to surge ahead considerably in workers. Now going for the flank. Now he's got a pincer maneuver potentially, but needs to be able to get down and snipe those Reavers to give the forward army a chance. Instead, that forward army just melting. Did he buy himself enough time? Dragging his way down. Dragoons have Zealots right on top of them. Focus fire on one Reaver. More cycling their way across, and it looks like the Reavers are going to be taken out last, but NewOcean does clear the army at the very least, but lost considerable amount of troops. All the supply lead he had is now evaporated. Still rallying towards the front, by the way. These 2 Dragoons might die on their way back across. Yeah, certainly going to take damage on their way back across. Probe make... I'm shocked that So NewOcean holds. Still has that third. So still has the macro lead. He's got all sorts of gateways to go gateway man. Does have the Templar Archives up. I did not spot whether Templar Tech was upgrading, and Ratty's starting to move out to go ahead and grab his third base in the midst of this. He's still sitting at 6 gateways, so this is going to be 6 gateways versus, I believe this is 8. Getting the full count here. Yeah, 7. Is that right? 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7. So 5 versus 7 right this second. Sorry, 6 versus 7 right this second. But with the Robo to fill in the difference. And it looks like we're going to see a double dedication here from Ratti. So rather than going up to High Templar Tech, is doubling down on Reavers. He is getting a Templar Archives in the midst of this, but also upgrading Reaver splash damage. Interesting. And that will delay the 6 o'clock base a bit. So it's going to be 2 base mining versus 1 base, and a lot of gateways to make that work with, and also some High Templar and Storm. So what it's going to come down to is how successful is NewOcean going to be with the Psy Storms once the inevitable Reaver... Where's that robotic? There's the robotics. Once the... Interesting spot for it. Once the Reaver and Shuttle are out on the field. And this is, again, a kind of a vulnerable base, as we saw in that last assault. And it can be hard to cover... This is kind of a feature of Deja Vu at large, is it can be challenging to cover this, your third base, in the space of everything else. A Zealot wandering out, by the way, sees Ratty's army movement, which is enormous. 6 o'clock, and actually able to travel through. Is he going to discover the 6 o'clock mining? We'll see. A Photon Cannon warping in the midst of this. High Templar towards the front. They do have Psy Storm. The Shuttle will be the big question here. Shuttle gets spotted. High Templar retreating initially. Does get an initial Psy Storm on the Reaver. And more High Templar making their way up. Second Psy Storm misses the Reaver. But they're landing on a lot... Wow, landing a lot of Psy Storms on these Dragoons. But the Reavers, with their damage upgrade, still standing. More High Templar making their way up, though. That's a lot of High Templar. Reaver taking an additional shot. That should clear out that Reaver. But there's still Dragoons standing. But now they're facing... Well, never mind. Blew up an Archon immediately. So all Psystorm expended. Do we still have an attack troop left? And Dragoons that were at the 9 o'clock going to make their way up to clear out what's left. And the Reaver's still open and free. In the midst of this, is there another? No Psystorm left. Big shot. Ooh, that was a big shot. That's about as good a shot as you can hope for. Actually putting Ratti ahead as far as the raw worker count, but he's just starting mining on that second base. And he just expended the entirety of his attack troop. And I don't know that so he's got 2 High Templar here. I don't know that he has enough. +1 armor upgrade as well, by the way, here for NewOcean. I don't know that he has enough to defend the 6, actually. On top of with all the troops he has. But it looks like NewOcean potentially thinking about grabbing an additional base. He's meandering out with the worker here. Is running across with the 6 o'clock. It looks like that Reaver's still alive. Thought that Reaver was actually wiped out in the midst of this. That Zealot is determined. Determined. But NewOcean holding steady, has gone up to 9 gateways overall. Is grabbing a Nexus top right to get his count up to 3 bases solid. That will put him ahead of Ratti once again. He's again got that. So right this second, he's got the upgrade lead. He's got the supply lead. He will maintain the macro lead, but I think he might be down a little bit of Psystorm right this second. I see 2 High Templar, and they don't have quite as much Psystorm. The one X factor might be this Reaver and this Shuttle. And this is only a single cannon, 2 cannons, to try to defend this 9 o'clock. That could be very vulnerable moving forward. We also have an Archon in the midst of everything, and also an Observer deep in NewOcean's territory that has not been caught. Sees the 9 gateways, has to presume there's another base. Ooh, is now going to get caught before it's able to confirm top right. But I have to think, looking at that gateway count, that Ratti must think there's another base out there. Dropping a pylon bottom right, a Zealot making its way that direction to scout for NewOcean. So a bit of a reset, some cannons dropping top right. 2 Archons plus 2 weapons, by the way, versus nothing. No upgrades as of yet for Ratti. So with and a 30 supply lead for NewOcean as well. Zealot leg speed just coming online. And it's gonna +1 weapon just finishing, armor 1. otherwise. But right now, NewOcean, if he picks some fights, should end up ahead. But it needs to not be little 6 groupings of 6 Dragoons versus the entirety of Ratty's army, which looks like it might be that right this second. Zealot versus Zealot here bottom right. A probe trying to hide itself. Gonna drop a cannon, and that's a lot of time for that probe to travel, by the way, so losing that probe is significant. If the Dragoons get to the high ground, actually, might be able to make something of this and make it a little bit more costly than it needs to be. Yeah, definitely making it more costly than it needs to be. And that army also got strung out from Ratti, so it's going to have to back out. Nexus is up top right, but not yet saturated, and probes have not transferred that direction as of yet. Ratti regrouping. He's got his Reaver mid-map. And NewOcean starting to move out onto the map himself. Has 3 High Templar in the mix. Each of them have at least a Psy Storm. So one of them has 2. I believe I counted that right. And Ratti making motions towards the 9 o'clock once again. And might end up... This is interesting. So we got a couple troops filtering bottom right. And another army filtering to the north here. Probe getting chased down to block out the fort. This is kind of what happens with Deja Vu, is trouble finding an additional base. Psystorm dropping all over the place. NewOcean has a scattered army that's getting caught mid-map. Psystorm going both directions. I don't think the weapon upgrade is going to be sufficient because this is the bulk of Ratty's army right this second. But a lot of Psystorm expended. And is that High Templar going to get picked off? No, High Templar survives. Probe finally spots top right. And now NewOcean scattering. A few of those troops in pursuit, but an overcommitment there from Ratti. Gonna end up losing a few of his troops as well. So now, NewOcean, if he actually musters the entirety of his army, he might not realize the overall troop count, but should presume, seeing that there's no additional bases out here from Ratti, if he just musters his troops and keeps assaulting here along the inner high ground ring, he should be able to deny additional base to Ratti and win it with that 4th base overall. But here comes that Reaver from earlier stage. Never mind, it's going to be High Templar and Zealot, Psystorm, clearing out the workers there, and mostly getting ignored otherwise. And I think in the midst of that, it looks like we had a favorable exchange for Ratti mid-map. Likely in a Psystorm exchange. More Psystorm, so things going a little bit Ratty's direction here. He got a good assault there at the natural. The big critical thing, though, is he's still missing an additional base, and there's still troops bottom right for NewOcean that are denying any additional expansion. And Ratti now maybe attacked a little bit too soon and maybe needed to get a larger bulk of an attack force to kill one of NewOcean's bases. So he's got the shuttle just sitting there right this second, but hasn't wiped out a couple Zealots getting scattered out. More Zealots are marching their way across. They need to evict some other territory. NewOcean, by the way, grabbing an additional base top right. The natural almost mined out. We do have the 6 o'clock that's staying pretty healthy. NewOcean rebuilding macro and keeping a decent supply lead still. But keep in mind, a lot of this army is scattered. Zealot marching its way back across. A shuttle able to scout at least that there's an additional base coming online. Might be a way to get back into this. A storm of Zealots charging bottom right, but this has put Ratti in a bit of a troublesome situation here, where it's hard to get troops stationed around. You can see he's already moving all of his Zealots back out mid-map, recognizing a potential counterattack threat. So wants to have them, and it's wise actually to overbuild speed Zealots, recognizing that he'd have potentially need to go bottom right and mid-map to engage this. NewOcean finds the troops here mid-map, but again, this isn't the entirety of his army. Looks like 7 Zealots are going to run out of this. Are they going to engage mid? It looks like they are going to try to engage mid. They're going to be able to find the Dragoons from behind. Probes are able to transfer here bottom right. We got 2 cannons morphing in, but those Dragoons could be a factor there again. NewOcean again has the weapons upgrades in spades, but because of scattered fights having some trouble, the Dragoons now making their way to the low ground. And this is his Ratti. Ooh, man, all sorts of Psystorm cleaning up some Zealots there. This is his Ratti, doesn't have troops. So got a little bit of distance mining done, but now focus fire on the Nexus potentially is going to wipe things out. And yeah, Ratti recognizes he's not going to be able to hold bottom right. NewOcean has 2 additional bases up. And there's yet another game to go. So now we're going to be tied 1-1 going into the third match of the series. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for listening.